So with that said, please join me in welcoming to the stage our keynote speaker, Nick Klingon-Smith.
Keep the music going. Come on, let's go. I can't take this song. Let's go. Let's go. Thank you. I am excited to be here. Who was at the New Beginnings conference in 2009? Anyone? All right, we got one, we got two, we got three. Well, I probably left a crazy lasting impression as gave some awesome sales training out there, if you may remember. So I just want to start off by telling you how incredibly cool it is to be standing here right now. You remember that conference? It was like in the back room of like a Howard Johnson's that I think it doubled as like a cigarette smoking quitting class or something at the same time. What a difference to walk in to this energy and this room and these people and to see these numbers. And I know you've already done it once before, but do it again. Give yourself a round of applause, please. Clearly the energy isn't enough. Who wants to do some push-ups? How about some burpees? No? All right. So it was October. It was a Friday afternoon. And my boss walks in my office. He looks at me and says, I want to do a Spartan race, and you're going to do one with me. Well, I thought for a moment, and with the most determined look in my eyes, I said, no. No. Hell no. A 10K trail run, that seemed miserable to me. 25 obstacles, torture. And to commit myself to train for this, impossible. I never wanted to feel that uncomfortable. But that's when I discovered the problem. I already was that uncomfortable. You see, I had everything going for me. I was 2 years sober. My career was peaking. I was dating an amazing woman who is now my wife. And I had just decisively beaten cancer for the 4th time. Life was good, but I was stuck. I already was that uncomfortable. And what's worse is that I was scared to death to do something about it. What I didn't realize then was my problem wasn't motivation. And it wasn't willpower. I just didn't have a way to break these obstacles down into the next move. Have you ever heard of a Spartan race? Yeah. All right, let me see some hands. It's kind of with the light. Who's heard of a Spartan race before? Okay, a lot of people. Awesome. Have you ever done one? Yeah. Does anyone here want to do one? I heard the no's. All right, if you're a yes, I want you to find me on LinkedIn later and send me a DM, and we'll see if we can hook that up for you. All right, for those who don't know, there's a lot of great obstacle course racing and endurance brands out there, and I compete in several. But I'm going to talk about Spartan because that's where my story begins. A Spartan race is an obstacle course race. Have you heard of mud runs? Yeah. It's like that, but longer, tougher, and with a variety of challenging obstacles that test your strength, your speed, your mobility, your endurance, but above all, your resilience. Races are anywhere from 5K to 50K. They take place all over the world too, on farms, in stadiums, across mountains, beaches, and parks. Obstacles include climbing over walls, crawling under barbed wire, swinging from monkey bars, carrying heavy objects, even jumping over fire. Oh yeah, and mud. Lots and lots of mud. So you can see why I thought this might make me uncomfortable, right? But didn't I deserve a little comfort? I had overcome and achieved so much just to get there. Didn't I deserve a break? I'd beaten cancer 4 times. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 27 years old. I have 7 herniated discs from 2 different rollover fatality car accidents. I suffer from sleep apnea, from nerve damage. I lost my mom at 62, my sister at 25. Didn't I deserve just a little bit of a break? Have you ever gone through a divorce? Anyone ever lost a job? Anyone ever lost a loved one? Anyone ever lost their biggest customer? How about that big deal you were really counting on? I know I'm going back in the archives a little bit on this one here, but has anyone say lost their largest shipping partner pretty much overnight? But you're all still here, aren't you? Right? But now what? And that's where so many of us get stuck. We survive the storm and cling to comfort. We climb the mountain and we stop. And why not? We think we've made it. But soon there's another storm. There's another climb. And we aren't ready for it. So we avoid it. We justify it. Resist it. Make excuses for it. And then we start living smaller. Has there been an obstacle in your life? Maybe one you couldn't overcome? A wall you couldn't climb? Is there an obstacle that you're facing right now? And maybe one that's got you feeling just a little stuck. All right, that one wasn't rhetorical. Is there an obstacle we're facing right now? Yeah. I hope so. Well, I don't hope so, but I would think you're lying if you tell me no. Because I saw some pretty big goals on that board, and that means there are going to be obstacles that we have to face. When we don't have the process to break these obstacles down, we end up stuck in the same patterns, fighting the same problems, and avoiding the very actions that would change them. There is a difference between choosing all in and going all in. I wasn't all in on anything. I was on the couch. And that comfort was costing me progress. My inaction was an action. My indecision was a decision. I was stuck because I chose to be there. I was uncomfortable because I knew I was capable of more, and I just didn't know where to start. So I said yes to the race. I trained for 9 weeks. And let me tell you, my first race experience was absolutely transformative. I remember walking up to the start line, and I'd seen these warriors coming through the fire, and they were covered in mud and dirt and grit and awesomeness, and I wanted what they had. Now here's another question for you. When was the last time you went outside and played, wait for it, where you weren't afraid of getting your pants dirty? Being out in the elements was liberating. I had created such limiting beliefs about myself that I was living in a bubble. I was convinced that I couldn't run because of diabetes. I couldn't adventure because of sleep apnea. I would always be held back because of my addiction. But suddenly there I was, out in the woods, tackling obstacles, like a little kid with no inhibition, no fear, no doubt, not me against the world, just me in the world. It really is this simple. When you limit your beliefs, you limit your actions. When you limit your actions, you limit your results. When I jumped the fire that day, I defied everything that I previously believed about myself, and I wanted more. Since then, I've completed hundreds of races, 6 major marathons, published 2 books, raised over $50,000 for charity, and I am currently training for my first Ironman. Which, by the way, if you are staying in that building over there and you were on the 2nd floor, I apologize if you heard the whining of my indoor bike at 5 o'clock this morning. So overcoming obstacles. Obstacle course racing isn't a hobby. It's a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle that constantly challenges me to be the very best version of myself in all aspects of my life. I don't train for races. I train for life. Racing is just a celebration of my progress. A friend of mine recently said that Ironman is all about things going wrong and learning how to fix them. Well, overcoming obstacles is about developing skills and knowledge and experience. It's about overcoming those mental blocks, those excuses and fears. It's about overcoming ourselves. Overcoming obstacles is about setting clear objectives and achieving them through ownership, consistency, and discipline. It's about increasing resilience through purposeful action. Through racing, through my career in sales and logistics, and through every personal setback that I've endured, I noticed a pattern. The obstacles were different, but the way forward was always the same. Whether it be a wall on a course, a number on a board, or something happening in my personal life, progress didn't come from motivation. And it didn't come from willpower. And it certainly didn't come from waiting for things to change. It came from action. And that changed everything. I learned how to take any obstacle, no matter how big, no matter how overwhelming, and break it down to the next executable step. Because that first step, no matter how small, is what creates all the momentum. And when you change the action, you can change the outcome. So remember that moment ago where I awkwardly forced you all to admit that you have an obstacle facing your life? Remember that moment ago where I awkwardly asked you if you all had that obstacle facing your life? Yeah. There we go. I want you to think about that obstacle while I'm talking today. Well, let me rephrase. I want you listening to me and clapping and nodding, so we'll say like 80% listening to me and 20% thinking about the obstacle that you're facing. Because before you leave here today, you're gonna know not only the action that you will take to overcome it, but when you're gonna take it. But when we're gonna take it. The first step to overcoming any obstacle is to clearly define the obstacle. What is actually preventing me from moving forward? Now, before we can answer that, we have to ask a different question. What is this actually preventing me from? Let me say that again a little differently. Before we can overcome any obstacle, we need to make sure that we are wildly clear about what it is that we're trying to achieve. That's what I like about Spartan. You hit the bell or you didn't. That's what I like about sales. It's unambiguous. You hit the number or you didn't. There's an obstacle in Spartan called the twister, which is what you're looking at right here. It's got handles that are attached to a rotating beam that try to throw you off every time you try to make the next move. Your objective, you get one shot to make it across the obstacle and ring the bell. If you lose your grip, you're done. The obstacle is very well defined. Success is clear, and so is failure. But not all the obstacles are as clear. Take a 6-foot wall, for example. Success is pretty obvious. Make it to the other side of the wall. But failure gets a little bit cloudy. Because unlike the twister, you can take as many attempts as you need to. So we don't fail until we quit or we run out of time. Most of the obstacles we face in life aren't so clear either. So how do we overcome those obstacles that maybe aren't quite so defined? It was May of 2020, and my wife and I were preparing our backyard for our COVID wedding. Now, that is a whole other conversation on overcoming obstacles, and we can talk about that one next time. But we were lucky enough to be living in Florida. We had a house on the water, and we had a dock that we were going to use as our altar. So our wedding party watched from lawn chairs in our backyard. Our neighbors actually drank champagne from their docks, and like 300 of our closest friends streamed live on Facebook. To prepare for this grand event, my wife and I were painting the deck, and I was crouched down, painting the railings for a while, and then when I stood up, I almost passed out. Blood rushed from my head. My world started spinning around me. I didn't know where I was. It was surreal. I didn't know where the ground was. Let me say that again. I didn't know where the ground was. I couldn't be sure that I was standing on it. I kept thinking, get down, get down, get down, because I knew I was about to fall over, but I didn't want to fall in the water. My wife, by the way, was standing right behind me, had no idea this was happening. And so I'm having this conversation in my head where I'm like, dude, I promise you, you're standing on the ground. That's the ground, trust me, go. And I hit the deck. 5 years later, I was diagnosed with POTS. Are you familiar with POTS? Anyone familiar with POTS? Okay, it's pretty rare. I think I saw a hand go up. I'm going to do my best to simplify this for you. POTS is a chronic disorder of the nervous system. It disrupts basic human functions like, well, everything. So for me, it showed up in my exercise. My heart rate would spike on easy runs, crazy abnormal sweating, crushing fatigue. I knew something was wrong. I spent years chasing a diagnosis. And the greatest obstacle that I faced, besides the insurance companies, were all the doctors telling me that nothing was wrong. They're like, you're fine. It's hot. It's Florida. Well, the more that I learned about POTS, I eventually learned that there was no cure. And I was already doing all the things that you could do to manage the symptoms. So if it couldn't be beaten, and I was already doing everything I could to survive, why do you think I wanted a diagnosis so bad? Any takers? Because give me an enemy I can fight. If I can name it, I can beat it. So think about the obstacle that you're facing right now and define it. What is this actually preventing me from, and how is it preventing me from it? What is this preventing me from, and how is this preventing me from it? When we don't clearly define the obstacle, we confuse the obstacle with circumstance, and we become victims to circumstance. Confusing those two is what gets us overwhelmed. You know, it keeps us stuck. I felt hopeless for years. I mean, I really didn't give you the true medical background on what that disease can do to you. And I just felt hopeless. And there just came that point where I was stuck. Anybody ever feel stuck? I'll just assume you're all nodding along because I know I'm not the first. What ends up happening is we see the wall, but we don't see the way around it. when we don't know what the real obstacle is, it's pretty hard to overcome it. So we end up fighting the wrong fights, or taking the wrong actions, or worse, no actions at all. Who would say that the market's been an obstacle? All right, I at least heard some laughs, a couple of you. Market volatility, all the things I saw on that board, right? Listen, I'm gonna be talking for a while, and I really want you all to say nice things about me later. So I'm just gonna say this. The last time I sold freight was October of 23, and they were talking about the market then. At what point does it just become the way it is? The wall isn't going to move. So break it down. Is there less freight? Is there margin compression? Have prospects and customers been ghosting? Is there uncertainty because of tariffs and economics? All of the above? All right, good. List them. An obstacle course race isn't one obstacle, it's a collection of obstacles. And none of them are supposed to be easy. So break it down. What does success look like? What is failure? And what is just a failed attempt? Get as specific as you need to until an objective becomes clear. Because that's what this step provides, clarity. It makes the obstacle into something tangible, something like money, relationships, or knowledge. And something that's tangible can be attained. Now, we can set specific, measurable goals that directly guide our next actions. So think about the obstacle you're facing, the one I keep bringing up, the 20%, and name it clearly. What is actually in your way, and how is it blocking you? By the way, totally comfortable if you want to put this in your phone, take notes, talk to a friend about it, it's cool. Can't see you anyway, and I want you working through this. What is actually in your way, and what is blocking you? The second step to overcoming any obstacle is to own the circumstances. What are the constraints that I have to work within? There's an obstacle in Spartan called the Z-wall. I know I got some hands up. Who's done the Z-wall? Okay, I only see like one hand this time. All right, well, the Z-wall is a zigzag wall. It is a horizontal wall that's got blocks for your hands and blocks for your feet. You can't touch the top and you can't touch the ground. Your objective is to make it to the other side and ring the bell unsupported. However, in the beginning, a lot of newer racers will sometimes help each other across. They'll get behind and put some support on the back, help them get to that bell. And in the beginning, I was one of them, but I wish that I wasn't. And here's why. It took me 2 years longer to learn how to beat the obstacle. The reason you take help is to avoid the penalty. It's to avoid failure. But technically, taking help on that obstacle was failure. The rules of engagement were clear. Ignoring them didn't make it any easier. In fact, by ignoring them, I failed, and I stayed stuck in neutral. It wasn't until I was willing to play by the rules that I could finally move forward. Has there ever been anything in your life you didn't want to accept? Is there anything in your business that's the way it is, but we might wish it was different? I spent a lot of time in my life arguing with reality, complaining about how hard it was. Why me? I remember sitting in the Walgreens, waiting for my first prescription of insulin, and I was holding back tears. I had just been diagnosed with diabetes. I was convinced my life was over, weeping about all the things I'd have to give up, how hard it was gonna be, how unfair it all was. Hadn't I had enough? Poor me. Well, that poor me mindset became another sickness. And for me, it manifested in my drinking. I spent the next several years as a highly functional alcoholic. And I mean highly. In fact, my career flourished during this time. And I mean, why not? I was in logistics. Everybody had a bottle under their desk. Listen, I wasn't an everyday drinker. I didn't get drunk every time I drank. And bad things didn't happen every time I got drunk. I didn't go to jail. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't lose my job. I still had my home, my car, my girlfriend. So it was so easy for me to lie to myself. I was unaware of my selfish choices, my destructive behavior, the immense power that alcohol had over me. I had no idea the people that I was hurting. When you're constantly in fight or flight mode, telling yourself how unfair it all is, becomes you against the world. But you make yourself a victim of the world. I justified my behavior through that victim mindset that I had cultivated all those years. See, I thought I was gritty, resilient. But really, I was fearful and resentful. It wasn't long until the bad nights outnumbered the good, and I was a slave to alcohol. Who are my poker players here? We gotta have more than like 3, right? All in conference. I know we're not Vegas, but we got some no limit players here, some hold'em players. All right. Have you ever gone all in and suffered a bad beat? Yeah, your drunk idiot friend on the seat next to you playing 3-7 offsuit. Can you imagine getting up and turning to the dealer and going, "No, that's not how it should be"? You think you're gonna get your money back? I'm sorry. The rules must not apply to you. Here you go. Going all in is the pinnacle of owning your circumstances. You can't control the cards that have been dealt. You can't control the cards that people are holding. And you can't control the actions that they're gonna take. And yet you are betting on yourself to win, despite all the things that we can't control. That's owning the circumstances. Refusing them looks very different. When I refused to accept being a diabetic, I was on the couch. Refusing to accept that I was an alcoholic kept me drunk. You can't overcome what you won't acknowledge. So instead, we waste time thinking that things should be easier, and we wait for them to change. We tell ourselves stories. I'll sell more when I have better pricing, better carrier options. I'll close better deals when I get better technology and better tools. I'll hire when I get more revenue and more time. And so we just keep waiting and waiting for things to change. What if they don't? What if they don't change? Think about the obstacle that you're facing and ask yourself, what will I do if the conditions don't change? So name the rules that you have to work within, because that's where execution starts. Stop arguing how it should be and start from what is. Accepting that we have longer to get to the starting line doesn't limit your finish line. It just clarifies what's required to get there. Obstacles are not put in your path to block the way. They're there to reveal the way forward, because now we can ask the question, what can I do? What is it about your reality that you can acknowledge right now? Where is my pricing not competitive? And where is it? Where is my technology not support? And what does it? Where does margin compression limit me, and where doesn't it? Because now we can focus on what we can control. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your reactions. The things you can't control, literally everything else. So name your non-negotiables and start from there. Because there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much money in the bank. There's only so many ways to get people to answer the phone. But now we can move forward. Because when I accept that I'm an alcoholic, I can begin to recover. When I accept that I'm a diabetic, I can be an ultra endurance athlete. So think about the obstacle. Think about the challenge you're facing, the problem you have right now. And ask yourself, if nothing about this changes, what can I do differently? Now, admittedly, if I had realized when I did these slides that they looked like a Jeopardy scoreboard, I would have phrased it differently. Let me see, how do we do this in the form of an answer? So, I can change my perspective. Hold on, wait. I can find the problems that customers are having that my competition did not solve. Anybody want to say, if nothing about this changes, what can I do differently for 1,000? No? All right. The third step, learning how to use a clicker. The third step of overcoming any obstacle is to determine the shift. What has to change in me in order to move forward? You're going to want to write this part down. What are the skills, strength, knowledge, or resources? And by resources, I mean time, money, or relationships do I need to beat the obstacle? What are the skills, strengths, knowledge, or resources? And by resources, I mean time, money, or relationships do I need to beat the obstacle? The Spartan rope climb is a 15-foot high rope, which is something that I bet most of us could have done when we were in grade school. And you know what, this picture's actually not that great because this is a stadium race and there's no mud at the stadium race, but in every other race, they then add mud and it gets slicked over by the feet of 1,000 racers who have came before you. My first race I did burpees, which is the penalty for failure. I walked up to the rope, I stood there and had a staring contest with it. I lost, and then I went and did the penalty. So after that race, I spent a few weeks, or a little bit of time, and I do mean a very little bit of time, learning how to do a technique known as the S-hook. So the following race, I went out and I crushed it. Yay me! The race after that, I crushed it again. Boom! Awesome. The third race, well, life has a way of reminding you not to get too comfortable. It was out in Chandlersville, Ohio. It was June and it had been like raining for a week. The rope was completely drenched. By the time I got to it, I exhausted myself trying and I failed. The week after, a couple weeks later, I did another race and I failed again. Suddenly, I couldn't climb the rope. I just assumed something was wrong with me. Something I lacked, something that others had that I didn't. That had to be the reason why, right? Well, the truth was a lot simpler. I couldn't climb the rope because I didn't train to climb the rope. I saw the obstacle as something external. I made no changes, and therefore, nothing changed. Now, there did come a point in my drinking where I thought it was a problem. So I did make changes. I made lots of changes, actually. Drink this, not that. Beer before liquor. Liquor before beer. Never drink before 5. Only daytime drinking. Only drink with your friends. Only when your girlfriend's around. Only on days that end in Y. But since I made no changes in me, nothing changed. You know what? That's not true. It got worse. And as my drinking got worse, the more people talked about me. And I didn't like that. So I decided to quit because of other people's problems. They gossiped too much. They were too judgmental. How do you think that worked out? Any takers? I quit because of other people's problems. I spent the next several months white knuckling it, angry at the world. I tempted fate too. I went to every happy hour. I manned the keg on Fridays. I even threw beer Olympics at my house. And I was miserable. I crawled deep into a bottle and I went in search of a bottom. When we don't want to look at what's really required of us, we see the obstacle as something external, something we lack, something we aren't meant to overcome, and make no changes. So we do blame the market. We blame the economy. We blame our territories. And we stop. When you say you can't climb the rope when it's wet, then there is nothing you can do. You've already decided that it was out of your control. You removed your ability to overcome it. And so we stay stuck, repeating the same patterns, overthinking, reacting, always busy, always tired, but never going anywhere. It is just fire after fire until we hit the wall. But our problem isn't our actions. It's our thinking. It's not the obstacle. It's the way that we look at it. Because we see the gap, but what we should be looking for is how do we overcome it? The real obstacle is the thing we don't have yet. It's the skill we haven't developed. It's the strength we haven't built. It's the knowledge that we haven't acquired. It's the work we haven't done. It's the change we haven't been willing to make. So what changes are you willing to make? What do you need to learn how to do? What strength do you need to build so that you can lead top sales reps instead of being one? What skill do you need to practice so that we can sell more value and give away less price? What actions do you need to be doing differently than you are today? Once you name it, even obscure challenges become actionable. Something we can build, something we can train. We can now set actionable, specific objectives towards achieving our goals. And so think about the obstacle that you're facing right now, the one that you've clearly defined, the circumstances you've accepted, and ask yourself, what is just one thing that I need to learn, change, or acquire so that I can move forward? The fourth step to overcoming any obstacle is to create the actions. Now, I should have used a better picture for this one. I didn't think about it. Who are my people from Utah? Can anybody tell me where this picture's from? Where? And where else? Well, obviously, but do you know where? That's on Snow Basin. I should have used a different one. You're probably not going to be able to tell from there. All right, step 4. How do I actually get what the obstacle requires? So we decide what we need, and now is when we plan how to get it. So there's an obstacle in Spartan called Stairway to Sparta, which you can see right there. It's about a 15-foot wall with a ladder wall at the top with steps and a 6-foot wall that you need to clear to get over. This was a pretty straightforward obstacle. But then, as in life, one day, it changed. And now introduce Stairway to Sparta Beast Mode, where they replaced that second layer with rock climbing mounts. Something that was once an easy obstacle to me and for others as well became nearly insurmountable. Now, I learned from my rope climb experience, and so I did train. I trained and trained. I did pull-ups. I did dead hangs. I found a local rock climbing wall at the park, and I continued to fail over and over again. I just couldn't figure it out. Well, I eventually heard other people talking about how they crushed it. And I'm like, man, there's gotta be something wrong with me. So I made up excuses and said, you know what? I can't because I'm just not built like that. Tell me if you said that one. I'm just not built like that. There we go, some honesty. Listen, sometimes we say that because there's something that we simply don't want to do. Like, hey, will you watch my kid for the weekend? I'm just not built like that, sorry. And that's fine. But oftentimes we say it because something that we don't know how to do, or something that we haven't practiced doing, and we use it as an excuse. Well, I didn't know how to do it, and it was the one problem that I couldn't solve on my own. So I reached out to my friend Nate. I'm 5'10", Nate is like 5 foot nothing. And he sent me a video of him doing this obstacle and just scaling it effortlessly. He looked like a little spider monkey going up and down. So I watched that video over and over and over again until I could finally see what I was doing wrong and the one simple fix that I needed to do in order to complete the obstacle. My next race, I went out and crushed it. And every single time since then. The step to overcoming this obstacle, the one that I was avoiding for so long, was asking for help. A few months after I quit drinking, I found myself in the middle of a blackout. I was being thrown out of a Las Vegas hotel the night before a conference, a company event. It took me hours until I was able to find a new hotel that night. I was in danger of losing my job, my girlfriend, my friends, and whatever self-respect that I had left. When my head hit the pillow that night, I said, God, I don't want to live this way anymore. I had already done all the things that I could do. All that was left was to ask for help. When we don't know the first move, when we don't change the first move, we can't change the action. We can't change the outcome. More of the same only gets us more of the same. So we end up stuck doing the same thing over and over again. This shows up in training the wrong thing, making the wrong changes, and repeated, picture number 2, repeated, exhaustive failure. Let me ask a question here. Actually, I'll ask that one in a moment. I just needed to learn how to make the first move. You know, when did we get it into our heads that we had to have everything all figured out? I don't know why I'm telling you this though. You're franchise owners. You didn't buy a Krispy Kreme. You bought into a proven process, a proven system, one that's repeatable, one that is scalable, and one that has proven the test of time. You don't need to figure everything out. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. All you need to do is model the masters and execute. Now, I know this might be a tricky question to ask, but I'm going to do it anyway. Who are the masters? Who's the longest standing franchisee? Are they here? Can we answer that question? In the back? Awesome. Who's the fastest growing last year? Can we answer that? Louder for the kid on the stage. Who's the biggest? Is there a sales rep in the room? Yes. Is the top sales rep in the room? Probably. How about sales manager? All right, here's the question for you. Why aren't the rest of you sitting with them? We have all the world's information at our fingertips. There is no reason we need to go it alone. I won't be the first person to go through what I'm going through, and I won't be the last. In fact, after registering for Ironman, the very next thing I did was connect to other POTS athletes to find out how they did it. We might need to develop several skills before we can move forward. We might need to build strength in several ways before we move forward. But this is where we break it down. This step is where a goal becomes a plan, where forecasts become daily activity, how pipelines become prospects, how empty seats become interviews. This is the step where we get to stop saying, I can't because, and we start saying, I'm going to. I can't because of cash flow becomes, I'm going to improve cash flow. I can't because I don't have the time becomes, I'm going to break out the time. This is where we can plan it. And when we can plan to achieve it, one step at a time. This is the step that separates you from them. This is the step that separates you from where you are to where you're going. It's the step where we stop throwing effort at the problem and we start celebrating progress. Because this is the step where we can now choose the next action. This one decisive move will make all the difference. So think about your obstacle. What is the first thing that I need to do so that I can move forward? As my Uncle Les once said, the only thing left to do is to do the thing. No, I don't have an Uncle Les. The fifth and final step to overcoming any obstacle is to execute relentlessly. Now, if you're curious about this slide, there's a reason it's like this. The mountain picture there is actually taken from the top of Killington, Vermont. It was taken in the middle of a Spartan Ultra, a 31-mile obstacle course race with nearly 18,000 feet of climbing, 70 obstacles, and a 60% failure rate. That's right, less than 40% of the people who sign up for this race even finish it. It is the most badass race in North America. It is the toughest race in North America, and I'm not going to talk about it today. But I do want to talk about this. Have you seen the movie Naiad? All right, we got one back there. Awesome. So because I'm training for Ironman, I have to spend a lot of time on the stationary bike. And other than like holding a plank, it's probably the single most excruciating, mentally excruciating way to spend your time. So I've been watching a lot of movies, and I recently saw the movie Nyad. Do you know who she is? All right, for those who don't, Diana Nyad was a 64-year-old woman who was the first person, and if I check my math here, the only person to swim from Cuba to the United States. I remember hearing about her in 2011 during what I thought was her first attempt, and then again in 2013 when she actually completed it. But when I saw the movie, I learned the whole story. You see, it didn't just take her 2 attempts, it took her 5, 4 of which were over the age of 60. And it didn't just take her those 2 years, it took her over 30. She encountered sharks, she got stuck by jellyfish, nasty currents, and nasty storms. And every time she failed, she came back stronger. She was convinced against all odds that she could do it, and she wasn't going to stop until she did. And now, while her mindset is absolutely one to aspire to, it was what she did after failure that made all the difference. Every failure revealed more obstacles to be overcome. But she didn't avoid them, she didn't resist them, she anticipated them. She went into them head on, and she relentlessly planned for them. Relentless execution isn't as gritty as it sounds. It doesn't mean just work harder. It doesn't mean just beating on your chest and shouting, "I'll stop at nothing." In fact, relentless execution means I'll stop at just about anything if it's not working. It's a process. Let me ask you a math question. I know it's probably still early for that, but 3 frogs sat on a log. 2 decided to jump. And I want you to answer out loud, how many frogs were on the log? All right, so you've heard this one. Yes, all 3 are on the log. 2 decided to jump, but none ever did. There is a difference between choosing all in and going all in. People stop here because they confuse execution with decision. They decide to act, but the first sign of resistance, they quit. When we don't have a process to work through that early resistance, then we confuse a failure with failure. But the problem isn't our effort, it's our expectations. We want execution to look clean. Who doesn't? We want to get it right the first time. Who wants to suck at something new? We want the one call close. And when we don't get it, we assume something is wrong with the plan, with the goal, or with us. They say it takes what, 7, 8 no's to get a yes? Something like that? Did they tell you how many voicemails it takes you to get a no? Thought I'd get more laughter out of that one. I wanted to speak at last year's conference and the year before. So you tell me, did I fail? There's a failed attempt, right? And then there is failure. This step, all the steps, overcoming obstacles, forward action, hitting goals, all comes down to the willingness to execute imperfectly. If you're going to write something down today, this is the line I want you to say. Relentless execution is about your willingness to execute imperfectly. This step is about committing to movement. It's about committing to action, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's about being all in and betting on yourself, even when you don't know what the other people are holding. The first step is always the hardest, In fact, that's why most people don't take it. So break it down. Break it down to the wildly specific and stupidly simple. Let me say that again. Join in if you want. Break it down to the wildly specific and stupidly simple action step. I want you to make it so simple that it is unignorable. You want to be a runner? Go get your shoes. What kind of shoes? Doesn't matter. Just go get the shoes. Make it so simple it's unignorable. This usually comes down to Google it, schedule it, or do it right now. Learn how to do it, plan to do it, or just do it. I'm standing on this stage right now because of one wildly specific and stupidly simple action step. Email my friend Steve and my friend Magnus and ask them, hey, do you know anything about this year's conference? One small action that leads to big results. Make it that simple. Not just what you're gonna do, but when you're gonna do it. Don't overthink, act, execute. When we are faced with new obstacles and encounter new challenges, break them down just the same. Overcome every obstacle one step at a time. One step at a time is the only way anyone's ever got anywhere. It's how I run races. It's how I've stayed sober for what will, God willing, be 12 years this July. Yeah. Continuously executing through disruption, through pressure, through uncertainty strengthens us. It forces us to adapt to changing situations. It forces us to learn new skills. It forces us to make uncomfortable decisions and decisive action. That is how you go all in. So I'm going to talk some more. But while I'm on this step, think about the action. Think about the obstacle. The one that you need to define. The one that you need to clarify until it's objective. Accept the circumstances you have to work within. We've identified the skills, strengths, knowledge, or resources that we need to acquire. We have determined ways that we can get them. What is the one wildly specific and stupidly simple action that I can take right now? I'm going to pick on Steve Seckett for a minute. Steve, how was that marathon you ran last year?
Suffered to the level of spirituality.
No, I love that. Steve and I were working together for a while last year, and when he mentioned the marathon, he actually mentioned it a couple times, and I believe one session to the next. And this is not a guy who needs a lot of pushing for action, but when we reconvened, he was like, yeah, I still kind of want to look into a marathon. So the wildly specific and stupidly simple action was to simply Google or schedule the 5 minutes to find out when it was. That's not the action he took, though. He did it right then and signed up for it right then. Wildly specific, stupidly simple. My audiobook, Selling Inspired, I waited over a year before I published the audio version because I didn't know how to do it. So what did I do when I finally said, hey, I need to do this? I scheduled 5 minutes to ask ChatGPT, how do I inexpensively and easily create my audiobook? Well, it only took me 30 seconds of those 5 minutes to ask that question, so I actually got started. Something I thought was going to take me months and months and months took me about 4 days. What is the one wildly specific and stupidly simple action step that you can take right now to get started towards your goals? All that's standing in our way now is fear. Fear is the greatest obstacle of them all. But we have to face our fears to overcome them. I am deathly afraid of snakes, and heights, and yet I spend my weekends crawling around swamps and climbing up mountains. I'm afraid of the effort, and so I push myself further and further. And every time that I do, every time that I step into fear, I redefine the space that I live in. Fear is the greatest obstacle of them all. I don't know why I'm telling you this. This is sales. This is business. This is logistics. This is fear. Fear of cash burn. Fear of hiring the wrong person. Fear I'm not going to get paid for my customer. Fear I might not be able to keep going. But our fears are liars. And we prove that time after time. We found no monsters under the bed or hiding in the closet. Fear only exists in my mind, and its only power source is me. We suffer more from our own imagination than we do reality. Mistakes are part of the learning process. If you're not making them, you are not trying hard enough. So chase your fears. I mean chase them. We're not going to be passive here. Fear is a bacteria that grows when waters are still. Action conquers fear. Action conquers all doubt. Action can change the outcome. All that's stopping you is you. Think about what you're afraid of and take the first step. Every time you step into uncertainty, there is less that you are uncertain of. Every time you take an action, take the wrong action if you have to, because that's how we find out what the right action is. Commit, continuous movement. Go all in on yourself. Go all in on your business. Go all in for your family. Keep moving forward in the relentless pursuit of your dreams. Thank you all very much for having me. Let's go, live inspired. Thank you.
All right, guys, give it up for Nick one more time.